Thank you guys for coming today. The Knowledge Bites sort of took a little hiatus during the summer. As we all know, summer is kind of a slow time for a lot of people, taking vacation and whatnot. So glad to be starting this back up. So today we are going to learn about the feasibility study for Route 30. And we have some great speakers here to talk about that with us and hear what you guys have to say or what you think. So I'm excited for you all to be here. For those of you who don't know, the Southern Vermont Economy Project, which is the program of Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, is essentially a capacity building project. So we provide webinars and trainings, workshops, technical assistance to help sort of advance those local economic and community development projects. So lots more information there on the website. And at the end of this, I'll share some upcoming trainings and workshops that might interest you. So today we have Laura and Amy. They are from RLS and Associates, and they are heading this feasibility study. And I'm gonna just stop there and hand it over so they can tell you what it's all about. Thanks for joining. And if you have questions, go ahead and just put those in the chat. Laura will kind of field those questions and chime in with any answers. There will definitely be time at the end for you to unmute yourself and ask questions then. So Amy, great. I think so. We're seeing your notes. So try stop sharing, and you might just have to tell them which screen you want. And you're also muted, so.
It's probably best muted. Try this one. Does that work?
Perfect.
All right.
Take it away.
Okay. So hello. Welcome to today's Knowledge Bites webinar. I'm Amy Rast, as Sarah said, and I'm with RLS and Associates, and I'm here today to talk about the study that we were retained to conduct to determine the feasibility of fixed route public transit service on Vermont Route 30. See if I can get my, nope. There we go. Okay. So the presentation will go something like this. I'm going to introduce our team quickly, briefly, ask our team leader, Laura, who's listening in, to say something about herself, give you a bit of an overview of the project, an idea of the goals, touch on some of the benefits of public transportation, go over some existing studies on the route, tell you about our process, and give you a quick and dirty feasibility study 101. So there's me smiling at you. I'm a Vermont native. I work out of my home in the Northeast Kingdom. I was with the Vermont Transit, the Vermont Agency of Transportation, or VTrans public transit section, for a little over 10 years when I left for the public sector close to 2 years ago to work as a transit consultant with RLS. I'm working on the outreach and planning component of this project, and I spend a fair amount of time in this area of Vermont when I visit my in-laws who live in Wardsboro. So briefly, our principal and founder, Robbie, not on the call, started RLS about 35 years ago in Dayton, Ohio, and she's worked diligently in the public transit realm on all topics transit for about 40 years, and the buck stops with Robbie. Among other things, she keeps us on time and in budget. Ray Boylston came to RLS after retiring from his transit job as an administrator for the Go Cary transit system in Cary, North Carolina, where he currently lives. Ray has over 30 years of experience in all areas of transit and is working on the planning and scheduling components of the project. Nathan Bubash has his background in public administration and urban regional planning. He specializes in GIS, geographical information systems, and all things mapping. And he's providing statistical analysis and stakeholder engagement on the project. And now I'll let Laura introduce herself.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Brown, and I am the project manager for this study, working closely with Amy and the rest of the team to get a good picture. She's going to go over the process, the planning process, but my role is to kind of put the pieces together from the needs assessment and the existing services, and then we all work together to come up with some recommendations that are very very highly likely to be implemented and sustainable for you. So thanks for having us, and I'm going to be taking notes and looking and listening for questions. So please chime in if you have any. Thanks.
All right, so to talk a little bit about the project, there's a strong interest in the Windham County region area for transportation services for the purposes of increasing access to employment, medical services, school activities, and to support economic development and reduce carbon emissions. Right now, most of Windham County either has very infrequent or no public transportation. VTrans is funding this study in coordination with SEVT, Southeast Vermont Transit, or the Mover, to take a look at the Route 30 in the Windham County region to determine the feasibility of fixed route public transit service on Route 30 from Brattleboro to Stratton to serve those two towns and Dummerston, New Pain, Townsend, Jamaica, and Winhall. A subcomponent of the study is to identify transportation needs on routes 11 and 100 in consultation with Neighborhood Connections, which is located in Londonderry. So fixed route service is transportation. Whoops, goodness. Got a little excited there. I fiddle. So fixed route transit is transportation on a regular route. So for example, Route 30, that a public transit vehicle travels on a predetermined fixed schedule with predetermined fixed stops for passenger pickup and drop off. And in Vermont, we often use a modification of that called deviated fixed route, which is a hybrid service of demand response and fixed route service, where upon request, a person can call in and ask for the bus to deviate off of the route within 1/4 to 3/4 of a mile off of the fixed route. A key component of this study is going to be public input. Without hearing from the people living in and working in the community, we can't really understand what the need is for public transportation. You know, who needs it, what they need it for. And we also rely on public involvement to understand what public transportation would mean to your community. For example, would school-age children be able to access after-school programs? Would employment opportunities open up if people could reliably get to and from work? Would access to healthcare improve the quality of the life in the community? Would medications, groceries, social engagements all be more accessible? And if we don't hear from the people in your community, we won't really understand what their challenges are. Also, there may be existing networks in your community that could be tapped into to fill some of the transportation gaps, like the first mile, last mile issue, which is how to get from the house to the bus stop and from the bus stop to the dentist office and back again. The goal of the project is to assess the community's transportation needs. What type of transportation would fill the needs, determine if enough people would use it if we actually made it available, how much it would cost to implement the service. And when we've gathered all the information that we need to make those determinations, we'll provide the steering committee, VTrans, and the mover with our recommendations. Public transportation encourages economic development by enhancing access to larger labor pools for employers, and it reduces barriers for potential employees. And it can help shape land use and development patterns and stimulate economic growth, for example, by encouraging tourism. As part of this study, we'll focus on connections with Amtrak and Brattleboro. From the Brattleboro station, you can connect with other towns in Vermont to the north, and you can go all the way to Washington, DC if you want to. The train stops in 7 cities in between Brattleboro and DC. And if you want to go to Hartford, Connecticut, New York City, or Philadelphia, those are some of the options. And think about what that means for your community if someone from New York City can hop on an Amtrak, ditch their car, catch a shuttle from the Amtrak station to Stratton Mountain, take another shuttle down to town to shop, and then eat and get back to their condo or inn and not have to worry about a car. I think that's sort of a game changer for folks coming in from the city. Through improving inter-community access, public transportation offers more opportunities to residents to move in between communities for social and cultural engagements, for shopping, for essential services, and this translates into improved quality of life and more personal freedom. Kids can take music lessons, play ball, hang out with friends after school, and all get home without their parents having to leave work to facilitate it. And from what I've been hearing from the interviews that I've been doing in your community so far, that seems to be an issue. So in this way, public transportation helps to bring communities together, and it helps to strengthen friendships and family bonds. Public transportation benefits the environment too, by helping to reduce emissions and energy consumption. And in turn, that improves air quality and helps prevent health issues like respiratory diseases. Most public transit routes run on set schedules that you can plan your traveling time around. Rather than spending time searching for a parking space, you can opt to start using public transit. Additionally, public transit reduces the total number of vehicles on the road. It reduces commute time and increases productivity. And some of the buses in Vermont and elsewhere have onboard Wi-Fi, and that allows passengers to be productive en route to work. They can rest rather than battle traffic, and they can read or watch a movie while they get to their destination. Considering cost too, it's far cheaper to pay for a bus pass than to deal with the cost of car payments, maintenance, insurance, parking, and fuel. In fact, a lot of Vermont public transportation services at this point are fare free. And if you ever heard of the Go Vermont program, you can find their website at www.connectingcommuters.org. And Go Vermont has a calculator on their site that will help you to determine how much you're saving in car insurance and how many emissions you're reducing by taking public transportation. So if this route were to be implemented in your community, how do you think that it would serve your community? Do you think it would bring similar benefits to your area? And if so, what do you think it would bring? Anyone?
Well, I guess I'd offer that significant benefit would be the ability of folks to access health and other services from the communities, getting to the hospital in Townsend or getting to healthcare providers in Brattleboro, as well as employment and so on and so forth. But I think that that's a benefit you want to be sure to assess or include in consideration. We've been hearing that for years.
Thank you, John.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Stephanie Beatty Hancock. I'm the Director of Special Education for Wyndham Central Supervisor Union in Townsend, which covers a huge portion of this area. So I just want to chime in. I agree with John that mental health services and conveniences, doctor's appointments, those would all be fantastic bonuses. But I also know of other supervisor unions who do not actually run their own transportation companies, and rather students are riding on the public buses. So that might be another pocket of possibility there, just to kind of put it out there. But I have a lot of students, former students and current students who have job opportunities but can't get to and from the job. So I think that this would be a great offering for them if that were possible. And I don't live in the area, so I want to make sure you guys know it's coming at this from the school standpoint instead of as an individual. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think Lynn had her hand up.
Yeah, something that I thought of, and maybe it's wishful thinking, that people taking the bus up from the train might give us less traffic through the Newfane Village and along 30. And maybe that will help the speed reduce. I doubt it, but at least it'd be less traffic zooming through the town.
Thank you. Okay, so VTrans and the Mover and other local entities have already identified transportation as a barrier for a lot of essential services, jobs, social and entertainment opportunities. Then this isn't the first time that a feasibility of public transportation has been studied on Route 30, but now we're drilling down, trying to get to particular local needs, looking for recommendations and suggestions for schedules, because we realize that only the locals know what they need to access the services, and we need to get that information from them, from you. In 2012, the Wyndham Region Mobility Study was published to measure demand and availability of regional transit resources, and it concluded that there was an overwhelming support for public transit along the 30 corridor. In 2015, a study was conducted in coordination with VTrans and the Wyndham Regional Commission to study Route 30. It proposed a fixed route service from Jamaica to Brattleboro, and then midweek demand response service Tuesday through Thursday to serve Grace Cottage Hospital and Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. Even though the study was inconclusive, it was a foundation for a deeper local approach, and it served to gain solid local funding support. And in 2016, VTrans funded a long-range transportation public opinion survey, and that included a question about what it would take to encourage people to drive less in Vermont. A whopping 30% said nothing. They just want to stay in their cars. Followed closely by 28% who indicated that transit improvements or more transportation modes would encourage them to drive less. Many thought that because Vermont is so rural that public transit was actually an unrealistic option. In 2017, the Mover applied for what we call a New Start funding through the Cmac Grant program, and Cmac is congestion mitigation and air quality. And it's a funding program that the Federal Transit Administration allows for folks to do demonstration projects for a 3-year time period. And if the route proves itself viable within 3 years, then the state would take over and would offer that as a real route, a regular route. If within the 3-year demonstration period, it doesn't look like a viable route, they can stall the route and eliminate it at any time. So in 2017, the New Start grant was for a transit route from Brattleboro to Jamaica, and it noted a longstanding unmet public transportation need for service along the West River Valley corridor from Brattleboro to Manchester on Route 30. But the Cmac New Start application process is really, really competitive, and the Route 30 proposal wasn't one of the selected projects at that time. VTrans produced a Route 30 corridor management plan in 2018, which among other things identified major destinations in the area, pavement and bridge conditions, traffic and crash data, and a significant presence of cyclists. And in 2020, another report was produced titled Improving Transportation in the Vermont 30 Corridor, fairly direct. And it reported that various community members in the Wyndham Regional Commission and the local transit provider have expressed interest in exploring the feasibility of public transit along the 30 corridor, which was actually the impetus for this feasibility study. It noted that the corridor lacks regular public transit service, though it is served with demand response service provided by the Current, which is another DBA of the Mover, actually of SEVT. In their 2021 Community Health Needs Assessment, which hasn't been released yet, Grace Cottage gracefully allowed me to take a look at that before they published it. Grace Cottage in Townsend identified geography, climate, and transportation as common barriers to healthcare and human services. And they specifically noted the lack of or infrequent nature of public transportation in the area. The document notes that low-income residents cite the cost of buying and maintaining a vehicle and purchasing fuel as insurmountable barriers when faced with a choice between buying food, heating fuel, car insurance, or gasoline. RLS will take the information already gathered in these studies to assist with our current feasibility study. So how do we do it? There are phases for this type of project planning. We're in the middle phase here on this slide. So first, we find a group of people who are familiar with and who understand the problem that we're trying to solve and who have connections to the community and to resources. And that will be our steering committee. And they actually help to literally steer the process by helping to plan and direct our project. They provide us with guidance and background information, and they connect us with or guide us to resources, and they help us to locate and connect with the right people. They help us to develop survey questions and get surveys out to the community, and they review our reports for us. Next, we take a look at the lay of the land in the project area. We look for things that might drive the process. We ask questions like, how many people live in the area? What are the income levels? Do they have cars? Can they afford cars? Where are the jobs located? Where are the hospitals, the schools, the activities? What roads do they travel to get to their destinations? Where are people coming from, and how far do they commute to get to their jobs? And what times do they need to travel? We reach out to people with surveys and public meetings like this one, and we ask questions about how they get to where they need to go. What transportations already exist, and to what extent do they meet their needs? If they had transportation, where would they go, and why would they go there? We reach out to key stakeholders like employers and regional planning commissions, economic development organizations, job placement centers, schools, supervisory unions, and then we ask them questions about what's working and what isn't to find out how to find and retain employees, how to draw people into the community, and if there are any plans to develop in certain areas that might drive future travel patterns. If there are existing transportation services, how well are they serving the population? We also look to see what's already been done to study the problem and then use that to inform our process. Next, we take all the data that we collected and we see what sort of story it's telling us. For example, and very hypothetically, there are some major job centers along the proposed route, and the employers feel that if there was regular and reliable commuter transportation available, that they would have better luck filling positions and retaining employees. There is a potential pool of employees in the area who want to work, but can't access transportation to get to work. We have enough data to support commuter service Monday through Friday, 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. trips, and we estimate that the service will cost X dollars to implement. Then we write a report, including all the data and the recommendations, and we bring it to the steering committee. And the steering committee reviews the report and provides us with their thoughts and on our recommendations. Next, we draft up a final report and we present it to the steering committee. What's done with our recommendations will depend largely on the steering committee, the mover, and VTrans, but it also depends on the proposal receiving local support in the form of ridership and some matching funds to draw down the federal grant. And that is it. So there's some resources listed, some links to the studies that I have talked to you about. And if you'd like them, I can send them to Sarah and she can get them to you, or you can jotting down, they're pretty long. And I wanted to thank BDCC, Sarah, and the Southern Vermont Economy Project for providing this platform for us to reach a broader community with our study. And thank you all for attending. Please reach out to us if you have something that you want to share, or if you think that we're missing something that might further our project goals. And now I'm opening it up to questions.
Not
Lynn?
so much a question, but just a comment. Please do send those links to Sarah so she can distribute them. I'm sure she would anyway, but just.
Okay.
definitely. I'll do that, John.
that.
Lynn?
So in 2 days, there's going to be a informational session in Newfane. And basically, this is the information you'll be sharing at that time.
Correct.
Great, looking forward to it. Thank you. Planning Commission will be there.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Amy or Laura?
I'll just add, if you all look in the chat, I did put a link to the public survey in the chat. So that's an easy one if you want to get it. And please take the survey. We have about 180 responses so far, which is great. But we'd love to get 380 more if we can. So please feel free to share it. Please go to that link. It's at surveymonkey.com, and then there's a /r/ and then VTRT30. Thanks.
Great. And I can send that link to in an email to everyone. And hopefully you can share that with others in your community. Any follow-up questions? I know Lynn just mentioned it, but the public information session in a couple days. Do we have a link for that? You may have sent it to me already, but for people to register, or is it Zoom or is it in public?
It's both, and we're going to do a hybrid approach because we weren't sure how to plan it, so we just planned it for both ways. So we're going to be at the Newfane Fire Hall from 4 to 6 on Thursday. Amy will be there, and we'll have this presentation plus some additional information to present. And then there's also a link on Zoom where you can participate via Zoom, and hopefully, if it all works out, we'll all be in that room together and we can see Amy, but I'll be online as well. So you'll definitely be able to talk and see the presentation. Sarah, we could send out, the link is on a flyer for the meeting. So I'll send it to you too, so I'm sure you have it, and then that'd be great if you could share it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Any other questions before I wrap us up? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I just posted the link on Facebook.
For the Zoom on Thursday?
On Facebook. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. All right. Amy, if you don't mind, just stop sharing your screen.
Got it.
Okay. I just want to highlight some upcoming webinars and workshops that Southern Vermont Economy Project is putting on. Next week, we'll have an ARPA update with Katie Buckley from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. We're also running a 12-week project management course with UVM Extension. There's only a handful of spots left in that, so if that interests you, please shoot me an email. We have a pro forma workshop scheduled for mid-September, and then we're looking to co-host a multifamily homebuyer course in January with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. So you can find all of those things at that website right there. And there's my email, but you'll get an email from me, so you won't need to write that down. But I just want to thank Amy and Laura for taking time today for this, and yeah, hopefully you'll see some of these people at the public info session on Thursday.
Great, thank you so much.
Great, thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Laura.